We're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and relaxation. Through my journey, what I realized was the only cause of that switch to be flipped was my own thinking. A lot of people talk about going and trying to find their, like, I gotta go find my purpose, or I gotta go, like, figure something out. And my experience is that it's in you already. Once you understand what your why is, once you understand what your pattern was that got you in the zone, you can start to bring that back into your life now.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Need motivation?
Watch Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You have Michael Jordan level talent at something. So get ready to change your belief systems, figure out your why, and identify your gifts with David Bayer and my take on his top 10 rules of success to give you the confidence, motivation, and belief that you need. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Change your belief system.
I think there's a lot of roads to the mountaintop. I have the perspective that I have because that was my journey. And I had to start figuring out how to walk in the darkness, because that's kind of what it's like at
What
the
darkness? What do you mean?
Like, meaning when you're caught in this psychocybernetic loop.
Can you define psychocybernetics?
Yeah, so it's this idea that what you believe will dictate your thoughts on a moment-by-moment basis. So if you believe that, money is hard to make, as a simple example, you're not going to have ideas or thoughts around money that would be lending to making it easily, right? And so what you believe dictates what you think. You can't get like an apple from an orange tree. And what you think you then experience is an emotion, right? And then that emotion then dictates what actions you do or do not take. And they're always aligned, right? Your beliefs dictate your thoughts, dictate your emotions, dictate your actions, which produce your results. And your results, when you look at them, then just reinforce the original belief. And so we're caught in that construct, right? But the linchpin is the belief system. So the question is, how do I actually change what I believe? If my beliefs really do dictate my destiny, right? Which is, I'm not the only person suggesting that. The question becomes, how do I change my beliefs? And in that is an inherent challenge, because by definition, beliefs are that which are true, right, for us. And so then the question is, how do we break out of this? My way of breaking out of it was at one point to understand, and I'll start to kind of walk you through the structure of it, to understand that there were only 2 states of emotional beingness that I could be in at any given point in time. I would either be in a powerful state of being, states like joy, curiosity, excitement, calm, peace, passion, or I would be in a primal state of being, boredom, anger, frustration, some form of fear. I'm always in one of those 2 states, and I'm never in 2 states at one time. Now, those map beautifully to the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, right? So at any moment, we're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and relaxation. Through my journey, what I realized was the only cause of that switch to be flipped was my own thinking. The meaning that I was giving the experience. The experience itself wasn't dictating whether I was in a primal state or a powerful state, whether I was in sympathetic fight or flight or parasympathetic rest and restoration or relaxation. It was the meaning I was giving the experience. And so that meant that all of my personal suffering was within my own control. I needed to start controlling the meaning I was giving the experiences of life.
Rule number 2, just start pursuing your dream.
One of the things that I see when I talk to people is they think they need to be the person who fulfills on this dream now, before they start. And it's really backwards. Because like Les Brown talked about, we become who we are capable of becoming in pursuit of this dream. And a guy by the name of Michael Beckwith has a quote which I really like. He says, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And one of the, I think, powerful stories of that is in the Bible. And I'm going to reference a lot of different like spiritual texts today. I don't consider myself any particular type of denomination. I wear my Jewish star, and it's not because it's Jewish. It has a particular meaning to me, and I have my Sanskrit bracelet and my astrological sign on my ring. So But in the Bible, God calls Moses, and he says, hey, I need you to go free the Jews from slavery. And Moses is like, I'm just a shepherd. And, God doesn't say this in the Bible, but you can imagine God says, that's okay, you'll become Moses in the process. Because, Steve Jobs didn't start out as like this icon that we see. How many of you have seen the Steve Jobs movie or read the biography? Right? Like, he's just a guy. He was a guy with fears and concerns and worries and challenges, but he just worked through it. And in that process, because he had this dream that was pulling him forward in life so that he'd overcome all the challenges, he became this icon. Same thing with Martin Luther King. Like, if you read about Martin Luther King when he was younger, he was an interesting young man, but we're all interesting young men and women. But he had this dream around the civil rights movement, right? I mean, he had a dream. And so he became Martin Luther King in the process. And the same thing with Gandhi. If you read the autobiography of Gandhi, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, because the thing's like 1,000 pages, but it's an extraordinary autobiography. And, Gandhi shares like his challenges with what's right and what's wrong. And he looks at his relationship with women and should I eat meat? I mean, he struggled with the same stuff that we struggle with. But he wanted a free and independent India. And so he became Gandhi. And the thing is that's not just reserved for Steve Jobs and Martin Luther King and Gandhi. They became these great people because they went and fulfilled on their dream. And a lot of people talk about going and trying to find I got to go find my purpose, or I got to go figure something out. And my experience is that it's in you. It's in you already.
Rule number 3, go beyond self-awareness.
There are a number of things that get people stuck. I mean, let's talk about beliefs for a second. What are beliefs? Beliefs are the meanings that we gave the experiences of our life, mostly before the age of 7, before a significant portion of the prefrontal cortex is fully formed. We gave meanings to the experiences of our life, or other people gave meanings to the experiences that we were having, right? I remember distinctly one time, I grew up in Orange County, California, and I don't know why in first grade they had us choose which mission we wanted to build along, we had Mission San Juan Capistrano.
Interesting. So
at a paper mache and clay, I'm building Mission San Juan Capistrano in my garage, and my dad walks in and he says, hey, let me show you a better way to do that. The meaning I gave that experience was I didn't know how to do it right. And just because of the way the technology works, what happens is that starts to shape the lens through which we experience the future experiences of our life. So the next time you have an experience, you're approaching that experience through the not knowing how to do it right. And because the brain is a goal-achieving machine, that's all we start to notice, right? Is what we're not doing right, and in really no recognition of what we're doing well. So we get caught in this psycho-cybernetic loop. And if you're not aware of it, there's really no way out of it, because in every new experience, you're just going to continue to focus on that which reinforces the belief systems that you established or the meaning that you gave the experiences early on, and you're going to ignore everything else. You become trapped, right? By
your own thoughts.
By your own thoughts, by your own belief systems. And now we're really understanding that those meanings aren't just some sort of marshmallow fluff or kind of esoteric concept. They're actually wired into the neural networks of your brain. We can't do that today, but in the future, I would imagine we'd be able to brain scan you and go, oh, those are the neural networks that light up when you feel like there's not enough time, or money's hard to make, or you're not good enough, or you're not as far along as you should be. And for years, I struggled in the current model of personal growth, because it's one of those things where the current model lends to self-awareness. And when I'm speaking on stages, I say, how many of you are aware now of your limiting beliefs? And everybody raises their hands. I say, how many of you have done the events, you've done the programs, you've done the coaching, you've done the different protocols, you've done the modalities? And make no mistake, I'm not criticizing them, right? This is an evolution of our own ability to change ourselves. And everybody raises their hand, right? They've been in the work, but now they're acutely self-aware, and they have no idea what to do about the patterns of thinking that they're aware of that are causing the stress, anxiety, and overwhelm and holding them back. So that's where I was at one point. And if there was a question or a quest I was on, it was, how do I go beyond self-awareness and actually begin to change the way I think?
Rule number 4, figure out your why.
One of the things I'd encourage you to do is to go back and look at your childhood and identify 5 or 6 stories where you really felt in the zone. And I want you to think about the emotions, right? I was doing this thing and this is how I felt. and you'll start to see a pattern. You'll start to see a pattern of behavior that's unique to you. You know, your why is very different than my why. I work with people to help discover their why, and you know, one of my friends is to, be the architect so that others may shine. It's very different than mine. So we're all here to serve a different purpose, to give to the world in a different way. And once you understand what your why is, once you understand what your pattern was that got you in the zone, you can start to bring that back into your life now. And at some level, you're doing that now. I mean, if we weren't living according to who we were, if we weren't expressing ourselves authentically at all, we'd be dead. We'd be completely cut off from spirit. Because really, this story of the human story is about spirit coming into the body. The challenge in the story is that the body has a particular operating system and the way that the brain operates and its survival mechanism, and we get confused. We think that there's this world that's out to get us, as if we're still living in the wild today, and we're not. And that distracts us from being who we authentically are. We start living life according to these definitions or these beliefs that we accumulate along the way. So getting back to your why, looking at those patterns of when you were younger and identifying where you're at now is very, very important. And like I was saying before, you'll find that you're doing it now. You'll find aspects of the job that you're in, or the relationship that you're in, or the hobbies that you have, or whatever it is that you're doing in your life, where you are expressing yourself authentically, but you'll find other areas where you're not. And it's important to continue to move more and more and more into alignment with who you originally were, because ultimately that's how the universe starts to work in your favor. That's how life just happens. That's how we create this coincidence and people just show up and opportunities just show up. You ever look at somebody and you go like, man, they have all the luck. It's like, no, they don't have all the luck. One, they put in a lot of hard work, and two, they know who they are. So they're able to pick out the different opportunities that are in alignment with who they are.
Also, if you want to have more motivation, self-love, and confidence, check out my 254 series. They're free. The links to join are in the description below.
The people who win work the hardest because they love what they do.
In a success world, please understand that success is happiness, not net dollars in.
You have to go build self-confidence.
Rule number 5, imply intelligent thinking.
If you could kind of like go back, what do you know now that you wish you would have known then?
It really comes down to what I teach today, which is being aware of how I'm thinking.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness, and also understanding then that really whatever I want to create in my life is possible, as long as I'm implying intelligent thinking and as long as I'm taking action and not spending time in self-doubt, stress, anxiety, overwhelm. But the journey over the last 20 years has been a realization of that, right? So at some level, I would never want to shortcut that experience because it's led to where I am now.
Right.
But if I could go back 20 years and take the knowledge I have now around what's possible and how to create it, that's the thing I would bring back.
It would have killed it, yeah.
Rule number 6, shift to a powerful state.
When you're in a powerful state, you're connected to creativity, to inspiration, to vitality, to energy. Health automatically operates. Everything that we want is in a powerful state of being. When you're in a primal state, you don't have access to any of that. So when entrepreneurs say to me, for example, what's the number one thing you would suggest to grow my business? I would say notice by moment what state of being you're in and use whatever tools or technologies you have access to move back into a powerful state. That's where things just unfold. And I'm not saying you don't have to take consistent action and work your ass off to create success, but you do it from a powerful state. It's very hard to do it from a primal state.
Rule number 7, align your goals with your dreams.
What I've experienced in my life and what I see in talking to a lot of people, whether it's friends or coworkers or employees or family members, is that at some point along the way, we get confused. And we misunderstand who we are. We start building this false sense of self around all the stories and all the labels and all the things. And we start living our life that way. And we get confused about how life works, how we interact with life. And we start living much smaller than we really are. And so we start giving ourselves away. I remember when I was young, what I wanted to do, I always wanted to take interesting concepts and present them in a beautiful creative format. That's what I wanted to do. And for me, when I was a kid, that was making movies. And I remember sharing with the career counselor and sharing with my dad and sharing with other people that I wanted to make movies. And the feedback was always the same. It was like, well, you can't really make a living doing that. It's like 1 in a million. And so as a young person, I was like, oh, okay, well, like, I don't want to do something that's 1 in a million that I can't really make money at. So then I got into advertising. And then from advertising, I got into working in the internet. And I got further and further away from like what was my authentic self-expression. And what I see is that we do that. We give ourselves away because we don't know any better as young people. It's like when your parent tells you something or a career counselor tells you something, you just sort of believe it. And so when we do that, we start to move away from our dreams. We start to give up on this beautiful thing that we're here to give birth to in the world, and then we get stuck because we don't have that dream in front of us anymore that allows us to overcome all the challenges in life, right? That pulls us into it. That's the thing that allows us to grow. And we get stuck. And so I talk to a lot of people in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, where they say, yeah, I just feel stuck. Like this isn't the life that I imagined living when I was younger, and I still have this vision of like how I could be living my life now, and it's not how I'm living life, and I don't really know how to bridge that gap. And that's this misalignment, and that's when we suffer.
Rule number 8, identify your gifts.
We all have different gifts and talents. I happen to be a good speaker. I'm very articulate. I have a great presence. I'm inspiring. I'm a great problem solver. I know how to take complicated concepts and simplify them. Those are my gifts. Well, it just makes sense that if your creator gave you these gifts, he or she probably intended for you to use them. And most likely it was for bringing your purpose or bringing your dream into the world. So what is it that's unique about you? What is it that people, go ask 3 friends. So, what is it that's unique about me? What skills or gifts or talents do you see in me that you think are unique to me? Identify what those are, and then again, look at your life. Are you in a position where you're able to leverage them? If the answer is no, you may want to reconsider what you're doing or who you're spending time with or what activities you're engaging in. That would be like being a phenomenal basketball player but going out and trying to play golf. You need to be on the court. You need to be in the right game.
Rule number 9, understand who you are.
We are a vehicle for the expression of universal consciousness or higher power or God to come into the world and create. That's what we're here to do. We're creators. And when you start to get this perspective, everything else you go and read makes sense, and none of it made sense before. Because what are we made in the image of? This higher power. What does it do? It created us. Okay, so we're in the image of it, we create. That's what we do. We are a channel for it to express into the world. And I use the word powerful for the Powerful Living Seminar. And I had to come up with a name for the seminar because, you see it on a flyer somewhere and it's like, live your life and, don't be stressed out anymore or overcome, the challenges that you're having in your life. I can't be like, hey, come to the seminar and discover that you're consciousness itself. I mean, you can, because some people will show up, but I want to bring this work to everybody because when you understand this, it transforms your life. Because things like fear and worry and anxiety make no sense. I mean, when you wake up as the creative power of the universe and you understand your expression for that on a daily basis, you're not worried about what your boss thought. You're like, how do I go express myself? That's what I'm here to do.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is create empowering stories.
Most of the things we get through in our life, but while we're spending time getting through those things, we're not, what I call in this seminar, living our dream. We're not working on that expression of our authentic self, that gift, that idea that we have to bring into the world. We're spending all of our time over here on this stuff, being stuck. And so, Jesse went some period of time that he told himself that story because we're not aware of when we're telling ourselves a story. Like we're in the story, it's real for us. So Jesse's story sounded something like, how did I get here? This wasn't where I wanted to be. I'm broke, I'm broken, look at other people, this is et cetera, et cetera. And then now looking back, he can say, well, this is what happened. What happened is I was unprepared and I was going through life experiences. And if we want to, now we can actually create an empowering story of what happened. What we'd like to do is we'd like to do it kind of when the story's happening, right? But you could create an empowering story. What would an empowering story look like about your experiences? If you were telling the story of a hero, right, who emerged, and this was the turning point in his life, what does that story look like? It's very different, right? It's, I face challenges and I overcome them and I can handle whatever comes up for me in my life and I know that I'm resourceful and I've made it this far. If I've made it this far, I can make it that far. These things always come up, but I know I can overcome them because that's who I know myself to be. And that's the empowering story. Now, here's what's interesting. When we have an experience, we know that what happens, we collect the experience with our senses and that wires our brain. Because we store the memory of that present moment experience anatomically, right? We see that these synapses connect with neurons to represent what we're experiencing. So, and that happens in the present moment. And then what the brain does is, in the future, it goes back and looks at the present moment and it grabs whatever memories it has and it brings it back to interpret this moment. So if we, in the moment, or recognize soon that we're in a story from the past that probably wasn't true anyway, and we create that new story now, what happens? Our brain records that experience. Jesse experiences himself of being the hero of his life and being unstoppable and being able to face challenges. Life is tough, but I keep getting back up.
Now I have a special bonus clip from David on how to find your true self that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching a video to taking action. Here we go. Question number 1. What is an empowering story that you need to create? Number 2, how can you better align your goals with your dreams? And number 3, what's the belief change that you need to start making today? And if you made it this far in the video, I wanna celebrate you too. Give me a #believe down in the comments as well.
I look back on my life and I realized that there were times in my childhood when I was really in the zone. And it was really who I was. You know, when we're young, we express ourselves authentically. We're not worried about what other people think. We're not living according to these stories. Frankly, we haven't had enough experiences in our life to realize that there are some things we should or shouldn't do, or good or bad. We're just free. And we're all different as children. But what we enjoyed doing when we were children is the same type of thing that we would enjoy doing now. It's just that we don't do it anymore. And so that thing I call my why. So my why, I realized, occurred for me early on in my life. When I was in elementary school, junior high school, and high school, I used to always ask if I could create a video instead of doing a school paper. I had a group of friends, as part of my story, if you've been to my seminar, you've heard this. But we love taking concepts that already existed and kind of spicing them up a little bit, adding some humor, adding some wit, and creating a movie out of it. So we would take the story of Odysseus or Romeo and Juliet or a lot of the Greek tragedies, and we would film those movies, but we'd kind of put a twist on it, almost like a satire. And what we loved about it was the process of putting it all together and presenting it to people and watching how they were able to look at something in a completely different new way and learn from it and enjoy it. And so I realized that who I was when I was being fully self-expressed was I was someone who wanted to inspire others so that we could create a whole new way. And every time I looked throughout my life that I was really in the zone, I was inspiring others so that we could create a whole new way.
If you want to see the top 10 I did on Gary Vaynerchuk, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
So I think people are audacious with their time. They're fancy before they're fancy. So everything's worth your time when you're at 0.